Okay, so we technically have a quorum because I'm here.
We love you, but you don't count.
Huh?
You don't count for the quorum.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we technically have a quorum because I'm here.
We love you, but you don't count.
Huh? Okay, so we technically have a quorum because I'm here.
Not necessary. I mean, we don't have to have her for a quorum to start. What time are they coming? Nancy and Candace.
I think Candace is just running late, but Nancy will probably be here by the work session. Oh, that camera there? Oh, okay. Ready? Yeah, she's. Oh, okay. Did she go upstairs or Maria?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We will now call the March 4th, 2019 board meeting to order. Mr. Gaither, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Leslie Grant.
Present.
Representing Educational District 3, Ms. Michelle Olympiadis. Representing Educational District 5, Ms. Erica Mitchell. Representing Educational District 6 and Board Vice Chair, Ms. Isha Collins. Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present remotely.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 9 and Board Chair,
Dun, dun, dun.
Mr. Jason Estevez.
And the music starts now. And the lights come back up. And cue. All right,
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
thank you so much. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 4th board meeting.
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Isha Collins, seconded by Michelle Olympiadis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. And before we start or approve the March 4th board meeting agenda, I wanted to share with the board and the public that I will be asking you to amend the items associated with item 9.03, creating a system of excellent schools. My recommendation will be a modified approval of the strategy that will include the adoption of a district-wide strategy on the vision of excellence for schools and a corresponding portrait of a graduate. This will serve as phase 1 of the strategic work around the system of excellent schools. And rather than approving phase 2, the excellent schools, the performance framework, phase 3, the support and action plan, as was outlined in our last meeting, I'm recommending that we act on those in phases until more work has taken place, particularly through the strategic planning process. There are also small, minor changes that relate to wording that I'd like to recommend. One around the word replicate, and the other around removing the phrase community engagement and governance from a bullet point under actions. And when we'll have those redone if it's approved by the board, so that you can review the action before it's taken. With that being said, is there a motion to approve the March 4th board meeting agenda with the aforementioned amendment to item 9.03? Been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Is there discussion?
Yes, please. I would like to be able to see that before we move forward on it. Do you have an understanding about what time that will be done?
Yes, we can get that, assuming that those changes that amendment is approved, we can have that done pretty quickly. So within the next 30 minutes.
I will add it to a list of reasons I'm uncomfortable with the timing with this, but.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. Dr. Kostarfin, will you please bring the work session items?
Chair, we have two presentations today that are focused on various aspects of our 2020 strategic plan. We'll begin with Dr. Olivine Roberts, the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, who will update the board on Target 2020, our CRCT remediation and academic support initiative. Welcome, Dr. Roberts. I'll turn you'll start, and then after she finishes, Lisa Bracken, our Chief Financial Officer, will provide the systems and resources, the fiscal year 2019 General Fund monthly financial update. Dr. Roberts, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Kostarfin. Good afternoon, Board Chair Estevez, Dr. Kostarfin, and board members. I am pleased to present an update on the implementation of the Target 2021 CRCT Remediation and Enrichment Academic Plan. I will address the purpose and goals of the program, students who were and are being served, the implementation framework, and close with next steps. The purpose of this remediation and enrichment academic program is to provide the students who are potentially impacted by the CRCT score anomalies targeted supports designed to position them towards proficiency for graduation and equip them with post-secondary options. To that end, our overarching goals are to boost students' academic performance by addressing key indicators, including course failures, academic performance on the Georgia milestones, reading levels, and the graduation rate, as well as improve students' attendance rate. The #1 factor for decreasing student enrollment is graduation. Due to the impact of each subsequent year's graduating class, we're predominantly serving students in grades 10 through 12 this school year. Our implementation framework consists of 4 key levers: the individual learning plan, parent engagement, communication, and lastly, evaluation. I will go deeper into each one. The implementation of the individual learning plan relies on partnerships to surround our students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and be successful. Our primary partners are Communities in Schools of Atlanta, CIS, and Public Consulting Group, PCG. Communities in Schools of Atlanta student support coaches work with each school to provide services in the listed 6 areas. Public Consulting Group provides a network of locally based degreed instructors who facilitate the tutorial services for the core content areas listed. Our second lever is parent engagement. Acknowledging parents as partners, this lever serves as the vehicle through which parents are involved in the process. Last school year, parents had the opportunity to engage in a variety of ways, including a family mixer, our progress review nights, and the launch of our Target 2021 app. This year, we added parent summits, designed to inform parents about the services, resources, and strategies available to support their children's educational development. Another avenue through which we engage parents and the community is via our Community Advisory Board. We appreciate them for their continued input, feedback, and support. The third key lever, communication, utilizes multiple methods to inform stakeholders and gather feedback, such as the app, the web page, Infinite Campus, and this year we added another communication tool, Remind 101, which is a website that provides a safe way for us to connect with parents, as well as solicited feedback via a parent engagement survey. 109 parents responded to the survey. Of those who responded, approximately 93% expressed satisfaction, meaning that they strongly agreed with the services being provided to their children. The last lever is the means through which the district measures the overall effectiveness of this effort. Dr. Tim Sass, distinguished professor at Georgia State University, who did the original study that identified the potential negative effect to students, conducted this evaluation. It addressed graduation, attendance, reading achievement on the Georgia milestones, failing grades, and high school GPA. The study compared the Target 2021 students to a group of students who had less than 5 wrong to right erasure marks on the spring 2009 CRCT exam, and as such were not recipients of the Target 2021 services. Findings from the study are being used to guide continuous improvement. Regarding the graduation outcome, the 2018 graduation rates of the Target 2021 and the comparison students were nearly identical, but this finding was not statistically significant. It is important to note that the graduation rates are conditional on being enrolled in grade 10 in the 2015-16 school year, and as such, they are not the 4-year cohort graduation rates of high school freshmen as typically reported. The attendance outcome revealed that students who participated in Target 2021 had similar attendance rates as the comparison group of students. Again, this difference is not statistically significant. The reading achievement, as measured by the 9th grade lit exam, fell between spring 2015 and spring 2018 for both groups. The drop was slightly larger for the Target 2021 participants. The difference, however, is not statistically significant. Relative to the outcome addressing course failures, the results indicated that both groups are substantially lower after 5 semesters of the Target 2021 implementation. Although the reduction in course failures is slightly larger for the Target 2021 participants, the difference is not statistically significant. Lastly, in regard to high school grade point averages of the core academic courses, both Target 2021 students and the comparison group showed a slight increase from fall 2015 to spring 2018. The difference in the GPA changes is not statistically significant. Dr. Sass has concluded that the evaluation of the Target 2021 program has become a challenge due to the following reasons. 1, the Target 2021 sample size has significantly reduced due to graduation. Only a small number of students are taking the 9th grade lit exam, end of course exam, which measures more so ELA and not reading. Measured impacts of the Target 2021 participation on student outcomes are generally very small and not statistically significant. Available test scores do not align well with the original benchmark, which was the 2009 CRCT exam, end of grade exams. As such, according to Dr. Sass, moving forward, due to the dwindling numbers of Target 2021 participants and their enrollment in the high school grades, the value of continued annual evaluations is low. And therefore, he has recommended that further analysis of the program impacts be limited to the final evaluation at the end of the 2021 school year. Looking ahead, we will continue with the targeted monitoring of student attendance, work to increase credit recovery participation, enhance college and career readiness strategy to increase student participation, continue the unique use of program resources, and boost the engagement of our families. This concludes the update, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions from the board?
Yes.
Ishay? Leslie?
Sure. Thank you for presenting this. So the recommendation and the next steps are to continue with the interventions that are in place for another school year?
Yes, we will continue. We will also refine, as we've been doing year after year, to ensure that we're better able to serve our students. But the commitment that we have made is to move forward with the program next year as well as the following year.
Yeah, so, 2 years left on it. My recollection was that the original financial commitment was around $5 million, I think, for.
And each year, that's correct.
Okay. Each year.
We have dwindled, we have reduced because
Right.
of the students.
But it wasn't 5
exiting.
overall, it was initially, and then it's gone down from there. So the total is greater than 5.
Yes, for each year, the sum
Okay.
total,
Okay.
cumulative total.
But just given the report and the first 5 semesters results indicate, and the report is not on here, but the one that there were statistically and otherwise do not seem to be any significant improvements. So can you give me some thinking around, like, what is the rethink of the interventions? Like, how is this going to be different in the next 2 years, or are we just running the clock?
So we will continue to refine, particularly around attendance and academics, to really fine-tune what we've been doing. Some of our interventions that we have in place were not captured in the study and are not able to be captured, such as taking students on college tours. So that's not a part. So those things were not added, and we believe that they're making a difference in the lives of our students. And to quote Dr. Sass, he said, one we must consider as we're thinking of program going forward is that it is hard for even the best designed and implemented set of interventions to have substantial effect in the high school space. And I believe that, coupled with the number of offerings that our high schools are also doing, really creates a challenge for us to have the depth of impact that we desire to see.
Yeah, I guess I just wonder, I think that was kind of the inclination after the first year, looking at it after the first year, and is there, so in the administration's recommendation, this is a necessary continuance of expenditure, not just we made the promise and we're doing it.
Right.
We actually are getting something out of continuing this specific intervention set.
May I share a couple of stories with you? And these stories are coming from our students themselves. And so this is one that occurred at the beginning of this school year. She was lacking some classes. Although she was classified as a senior, she was not on track to be with her class of 2019. She's now back on track and is also dually enrolled. And the student credits her success to her teachers and the supporters from the Target 2021 program, namely the student support coach, as well as her tutors. And she believes that if it had not been for this program, she would not see the future that she has ahead of her now. I have other stories that I can share that are similar to this. So even though, yes, we see minor impact, I believe that this program is also valuable and is making a difference in the lives of our students.
Yeah, and I wouldn't question that at all. I think as many interventions as we can provide. I guess my question is that the validity of applying it specifically to this group of students versus taking the lowest, percentage in each high school and applying those interventions to them instead. So anyway.
It's just additional support that we're providing to these students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ishay, then Cynthia.
That was going to be part of my question. Just understanding more of the statistically insignificant portion of it, and I think for me, you just kind of hemmed on it, where it's more of the interventions that are being provided versus a true cohort model. And so, I'm just reading the report, and even though he says a lot of these things there wasn't a huge impact, the interventions didn't have a huge impact on the outcome, I still think for me it was a great investment for us to at least provide this support and program to children that were impacted. I mean, if we really wanted to go a deeper depth, we could have, I'm quite sure that, I don't know what the conversation was about a firm cohort model, even down to the course selections, if that was even possible. But I mean, the conversation just kind of centered around what I was going to ask anyway. But another question I did have was just kind of wanted some more details about on slide 9 about the individual learning plans, and just curious to know if those plans included any additional support, like after they graduate, or is there any continuum? Not to say that we're providing that, but something etched on paper and a document to help even guide them along graduation. Just curious about that.
So right now, the program gets them through graduation. We do have through CIS, because of their philosophy to ensure that students are successful once they enter the post-secondary arena. We do have that as an added bonus, as a partnership with CIS, but the design of our program was to serve students within at the time, 612 space, now 912.
Thank you. And then for slide 10, what was some of the parent summits? What were those topics or the content of those? And I'm quite sure that's probably something you guys are going to continue, but just curious as well.
So the parent summits, we've had 2. One was in November, and topics included finding the post-secondary fit, planning for college, dealing with attendance, as well as providing some career opportunities focusing on military options. In January, the parent engagement talk related to ways to really engage parents in becoming more involved in school. And so our last summit, which is planned for March 21st, will address topics such as the bag for your child's post-secondary dreams, the truth about attendance and high school, because we have seen that as an issue, so we're going back to address attendance, and learning your work-ready fit. So are you ready to leave us, particularly the class of 2019, ready to exit APS and know what your options are when you leave us?
And how has the attendance been at those parent summits?
So the last one, parents, we had 97 in all, including students, and the attendance has been improving over time.
Cynthia?
Yes, Dr. Roberts, I heard you say that the graduation information was based on 10th grade enrollment, not the 9th grade cohort. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do we have data on the 9th grade cohort, since that is what we typically use to measure graduation rate?
We will for the classes of 2020 and 2021, because those are the two classes that will meet the criterion of being in high school for 4 complete years. When we started this program, our students had already begun 9th grade. We started in January of 2016, so we're not able to use the 4-year graduation formula, but we'll be able to apply that to the class of 2020 and the class of 2021.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roberts.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. And Dr. Sarpin?
Yeah, so I just want to thank Dr. Roberts. I know this has been a heavy lift because, in part, these were students who had been in APS for 6 years after the scandal, before Target 2021 was available. So I know that if people have forgotten, it's a good time to remind folks that the students had been in the system for quite some time with, I think, large level, like district-wide supports was the strategy back then. And so we were trying to refine and be specific after we got a chance, after a whole year of studying, finding the kids in the system. I don't know if the board, I know we have new board members, so I'm not sure people knew that we had done that part of the work. And also, the thing that always is the question mark on something like this when you're dealing with trying to correct past wrongs as part of our equity question is whether or not we'll never know if the students would have been worse off or fared worse if we had not provided these supports. So that's always a question. And so what we did, at least with the board that approved this, was make a determination at the time that it was worth it, and we, had a responsibility to kids who had not been identified, who had not been targeted, and had not been offered specific support. So while the data is the data, I do think it's important that we try to remember that because it was quite messy when we started. But I want to thank you and your team for doing a great job of trying to not only bring it together, but hold it together. And I'd also like to publicly thank Dr. Sass for his commitment over the last couple of years. They've been great partners to us, and so would you please relay our appreciation for his studies and feedback along the way.
Most well. Thank you.
Lisa Bracken, the Chief Financial Officer, is joining us now to present the monthly, and also give us a little teaser about the 2020 budget primer, which is always exciting to hear about.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Today I'll be presenting 3 topics related to finance. First, I'll provide you with the financials for FY 2019 for all activities occurring in the months of July through January within Fund 150. Then I will present to you the need for a budget adjustment for FY 2019. And finally, I'll provide a brief overview of the FY 2020 budget primer, which is available on the budget website and also is attached to board docs to agenda item 12.06. With the next 4 slides, we will cover the FY 2019 financials for the first 7 months of the fiscal year. So far, we have collected about 77.13% of the total resources budgeted, with local collections at 90.67%, state at 42.48%, and other, which includes the Fund 150 Title I transfer in, at 44.59%. We are currently tracking ahead of pace for all local revenue collections, as tax bills went out much earlier this year than last year. However, this is the first month we are beginning to look more comparable to the previous year. Collections are still lagging slightly from our assumptions because of the much higher than usual number of appeals, and it remains to be seen what portion of these appeals will be resolved during this fiscal year and which one will carry over into next fiscal year. So we will continue to closely monitor local collections over the following few months. On slide 5, we see the budget to actual expenditures so far for FY 2019. We have currently spent 52.89% of budgeted allotments, and spending in all functions is appropriate for this point in the fiscal year. Slide 6 represents the current spending trend for FY 2019 against the FY 2018 trend. This is the first month we are beginning to see a correction in year-over-year comparisons, as by January of last year, we had lifted the spending freeze and caught up on all delayed pension and charter school payments. There is variation in spending, function by function, but overall there is no meaningful deviation that alerts us to make any adjustments to budgets or spending at this point. Please remember that timing of large expenditures from one month to the next can greatly impact the percentage spend against the previous year. Detailed financials for all funds can be found in agenda item 12.05. I am bringing one budget adjustment to you today. This adjustment impacts fund balance and general fund expenditures and is in support of the construction of the new Woodson Park Academy. As you know, this project is being supported by multiple funding streams, including the district's SPLOST funds and funding from the philanthropic community. There currently exists a funding gap of $1.9 million in philanthropic funding, primarily caused by increased construction costs, which has resulted in a timing issue that qualifies for $8 million in new market tax credits, which is another critical funding stream for the with specific time constraints. This budget adjustment represents a pledge of APS General Fund in the amount of $1.9 million in order to serve as our commitment to fund the Woodson project in the unlikely event the philanthropic funding is insufficient to cover the funding gap. So the foundation can qualify for the tax credits without losing it. The expectation is that APS will not experience an expenditure or capital outlay against this budget item, as we expect the dollars will come from Grove Park Foundation through philanthropic funding that comes in April. However, if for whatever reason the commitments are not realized, APS will experience the $1.9 million reduction in fund balance, but will maintain our budget parameter of withholding fund balance at greater than 7.5%. After exploring all options, all parties agree that this is an easy, straightforward, and short-term solution that will guarantee that the project continues and it gets completed. Details for these adjustments can be found in Agenda Item 9.04. Agenda Item 12.07 includes the detailed information reports for special revenue, adjustments less than $1 million that have occurred in January. At this time, I'll provide a brief update on the FY 2020 budget development process and introduce our FY 2020 budget primer. A budget primer sets the stage and provides context to the public for the development of assumptions and impacting factors for the budget process. This primer includes an overview of APS, including highlights of the year so far, discusses innovations and resource allocations, and provides an overview of the district's strategic plan. It also presents the most impactful FY 2020 budget drivers, and finally it outlines the budget process and discusses the APS BFAC and Budget Commission FY 2020 budget development calendar, and provides an overview of the current FY 19 budget. In particular, the primer discusses the district's school funding model, student success funding, and the consolidation of funds pilot under innovations and resource allocations. We also discuss efforts undertaken to ensure APS has access to as much local revenue derived by our tax millage as possible by minimizing the impact of abatements and TADs wherever we can. Under budget drivers, the The primer includes the board's approved FY 2020 guiding principles and budget parameters, strategic priorities, and mandatory costs, including the annual 3% increase towards our share of the city's pension and impacts of compensation models and TRS rate changes, and provides an overview of the national, state, and local economic context. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you so much, Lisa Bracken, for that. Questions? Leslie?
It is the budget primer. I have a question about that. We are not hitting that at any point later in the agenda, correct?
Right.
Okay. I was able to watch the meeting after the fact the other night, and there was a question that came up, and I just wanted to make sure that we really look at this, because my understanding is that it's been asked a couple times. I'm trying to find the chart, and you probably know where it is. The chart that exhibits the spending at central office versus in the schools over the years. Hang on. Historical trend, direct spending to schools. So on page 23. So I assume the point of this one is to show that we're, administrative versus instructional kind of divide there. The question was asked and answered at the meeting that the number in the bottom that is spent on schools includes the entire allocation that is given to charter schools. Is that correct? And
Yes,
partners?
charter schools and partner schools are funded out of Function 1000.
Okay. If it is reported for sort of a functionality thing, that's fine. But could I request that we get this chart that just remove all of the money from the charter allocations and partner allocations? Because inherently within that money, they are going to spend something on administration that we aren't privy to, or we don't report that way. But could we get a direct understanding, direct correlation about our traditional system expenditures, instruction versus central administration? I'm not talking to,
No,
does that make sense?
No,
Okay.
I think I
It makes
understand
sense
what
in
you're
my mind.
asking
Okay.
for.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Anyone else? I did have a question about the increasing expenditure, 1.9 for the Whitson Park project. I just want to make sure, you may have explained it already, or Dr. Christopher, maybe you can explain it, but
Depends on the question.
we anticipate that the Grove Park Foundation will make up any potential expenditures here that it's likely that we may not have to
Right, so.
spend any money here.
Correct. They are still fundraising, and so this is a gap because of the interest on some of the loans and some of the increasing construction costs, and also when we were, purchasing properties around the school. So collectively, it's about a $1.9 million gap. They are absolutely fundraising, but there is a deadline to be able to have all pledges in place for a new market credit deadline. And it's a significant amount of money that would really help the project. So they're not anticipating having to use it, but APS is pledging to be able to back it if so that they can make that deadline. They'll keep fundraising. Our goal is to ensure that they don't have to use it, and we're trying to make all that kind of wrap up by the end of this fiscal year, so June 30th, 2019. If for any reason, all the money isn't there, we have discussed and shared with the board that we would lean into fund balance because it would be a temporary use. They continue fundraising and would still put the money back. So the project is far from being over. There's still a lot to do, but none of us wanted to waste the opportunity to be able to have access to the new market tax credits and to be in that cycle for the way the funding works. And so the pledges have to be completed, here in March, and we wanted to be sure that that we were doing everything we could to ensure we could stay on that cycle. So it does have some risk to it, but we do have clear guidance and commitment from them to keep fundraising until they put the money back. But they're not using the money at the outset. Let's be clear. It's only if by the time we get to the end of the fiscal year, it's not all there. So they still have some asks out, but they are almost complete with their fundraising targets, and this is the gap. And we were involved in that gap. Remember, we were purchasing properties, trying to clean up titles, and it did increase. As people started finding out about the project, the cost did continue to increase.
Thank you. Ishay, then Leslie.
And Dr. C, what's the assurance that we have in that space? Do we have, is there a MOU in place, or is it tied to the community compact? What assurance can we hold them accountable to this?
So it is in the agreement. I mean, they came to us with a proposal and an ask based on whether or not the board approves this. We can finalize, all the details, but they did make that commitment, and it's not tied to the community compact because it's not related to, well, I should say the community, it's not called compact. Yes, community compact. It's not tied to that. It is absolutely tied to like a financial arrangement between APS and the Grove Park Foundation. So you'll give approval, you'll give me approval to work that out with them. But if for any reason it doesn't look like it's working out, I still don't have to do it. If there's anything that changes, I can still say, this is not exactly what you said, and we won't go all the way through with it, and I would notify you. But I'm asking for your approval, like we do on everything else, to finalize those negotiations.
I don't know if this is on there. Just for clarification, it sounds as though it's establishing a line of credit. Is that what it's similar to, or is that the best way for us to understand?
I wouldn't say a line of credit.
For us, the way that it's basically earmarking fund balance. So you can set aside fund balance for a specific purpose, and we would be setting aside fund balance for this specific purpose.
It is tied to the very well-articulated, board-approved guidance around what we can use, and how we can use fund balance. So it's one time, it's not reoccurring. Y'all have some guidance you've given us over the years that we use. So this did meet that criteria, but the details are the things that we have to absolutely be certain that based on what they said they would do and how it would work, this would be the agreement they would have to put in place.
Can I ask a follow-up? Just a follow-up to that. So what's the impact of fund balance, and if it is used, what, I guess y'all are negotiating what the percentage rate would be to pay back so that fund balance gets back on track sooner than later?
Right. And so we're not charging them to be able to do this. This is if I'm not mistaken, Lisa, it does meet the board policy. We don't go below the 7.5. I think we'd be at 8.6.
8.6.
Yeah, 8.6. So we're still above the board policy minimums. And again, it doesn't come out right away. This is all about whether or not they meet it at by the end of the fiscal year. So the money isn't coming out right away. So, and I'm not proposing that we charge them for the money. They will be getting a loan anyway to be able to start continue to work the project and everything else. But anyway, we're not negotiating a financial structure deal. We're not working as a bank. We're not doing it like you said. We're not giving them a loan.
Okay, that's not, you weren't at my one-on-one I met with, and I said, is it like a line of credit? And that's what I was told it was like, so I appreciate the clarification and understanding. So when we give them the 1.9 from the fund balance, what is the obligation to return the money? If they were to need the 1.9.
Right, that's why, so that's what I put in the agreement as it relates to finalizing if the board decides to approve this today.
Walk me through what you just said one more time.
So again, the way it works, every time we come to a board meeting, every time we ask for approval to do something, right? The board approves it, and if there's anything left for me to go negotiate and finalize against your guidance, that's what I go do. So you're giving me the authority to go do this with them. If it does not meet the standard that we all agree to, then won't do the deal, right? And we've done that before on different contracts for different reasons at different points over the last 5 years and for the last probably 145 years that APS has been in existence. So what we're doing now is getting your authority to go and finalize those details. Those details are exactly as I outlined when Chair Estevez asked the question at the outset. So we're setting a ceiling. We are setting a deadline. We are getting clarification on how they're doing the fundraising. You're also authorizing me, if for any reason we come up on June 30th and let's say they raise 1.3 million, not 1.9, that I can use some of the fund balance, and they still have to fundraise to still put it back because we're using it like we would use fund balance. It's not meant to go away and never be replenished. And we're tying it to fund balance for that reason. It gives us clear guidance, already board approved guidance on how we can use those monies.
I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie?
So I think two things. One came up from Michelle's question. Everything you just outlined, is there a reason that we couldn't have that attached as a draft document to this action before we approve it? And then secondly, I just, for the public's understanding of this entire project, this is an over $100 million investment, correct? This entire project includes a YMCA, an early learning center. We were putting in 18 million.
18.5.
For the school component of that, the elementary school component of that. Question is, so again, this is 1.9 on top of 80 something and change that the foundation is putting in to match our 18.5. So I just want to, this is in context of what's happening here. This is a small piece that just needs to get it over the line to finish. Have there been, I know that we were given some line items on the cost of increased construction cost, materials and labor due to the economy speeding up. Has this project experienced those? I can't remember from that list. Has this project experienced any of those?
Yes.
And so have we approved that yet?
Oh, no. Oh, you mean our school part. We haven't started, no, we haven't started building that part. But our plan, of course, is that given the way our people did the planning and everything else, all of those things have been outlined on what we are able to do as far as it relates to designing and building our school portion. The key to it all kind of coming together is making sure that, that all the rest of the partners, when you put it all together, because it's not a bunch of independent sites, you got to put it all together and then do the design. But our intention still is to be in that 18.5 million. That's what we've committed, and we know, y'all know, because you've been doing the facility master planning, you've been trying to manage and monitor eSPLOS, at a more aggressive rate, that we don't have a lot of flexibility in those dollars. So everybody understands the limitations that we have, and so we also know that even after they raise the gap funding, once projects get started, other people still may want to come in, and that would give us an ability to raise above the target and have a little more cushion in all the work that we'll be doing in the out years. So the faster we kind of wrap it up and the faster we get, we stay on target and keep working the plan, the better we'll be able to contain the cost. So, everybody knows what they were able to project and plan to do, and we want to stay on that timeline as much as possible, which is in part why they came and asked me to ask the board to do this.
Okay, so to finalize that though, again, I don't recall there being an increase, but I would assume there would be at some point when this project finally starts, that the 18.5 week committed perhaps may need some additional funds to make up that, whether it does or not.
And I'm just saying I can't say that for sure, but
Understand.
I wouldn't say that's
Yeah.
impossible.
But again, for this particular issue, this is hopefully not going to realize, it is going to be just a paper transaction for, that won't happen. And if it does, again, I just would like to request that the board receive more, point by point understanding about what those are before we approve things, if that could happen.
Okay.
What the parameters of that are. I understand you said it twice in the meeting.
Yeah, no,
It's
Mr.
nice
Chair-
to have it as part of the documentation on board docs.
Yep. So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Board Member Grant, we can absolutely do that and document it. So that's my only point, but we can definitely add that to this. And of course, in our agreement with them, it will be clear, all of those points will be clear, and if they can't agree to them, then we won't sign on.
Well, one other point I was going to make to Leslie's question was that, or comment, was that because we're in this project with other partners, if there is increased costs, assuming there are increased costs, it's spread out amongst the various parties, which we have in this case. We wouldn't normally have that in TAG, for example, where it's solely APS having to bear the brunt of the increased costs. In this project, there are multiple parties involved, which helps reduce that cost. I think, Leslie, the point you brought up about this being $100 million development is something to take note of. This helps support that and move that forward, and it's something that I think APS should take a look at seriously, and the board should take a look at seriously to ensure that our investment and the return we were expecting actually comes to a reality. With that.
So on behalf of the Grove Park Foundation, I appreciate y'all considering this and for approval.
Lisa, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, so I believe there is reason to go into executive session for personnel and student discipline. So can I get a motion to enter into executive session to discuss matters involving personnel and student discipline? So moved. Been properly moved by Ishay Collins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Erica Mitchell. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now retreat into executive session. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will now continue the legislative portion of the meeting. Cynthia Briscoe Brown, are you still with us? It's like, so I'm just checking. Yeah. I heard her. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, community members, for taking the time to speak with us this evening. We always appreciate your feedback, and we will now move on into the legislative portion of today's agenda. But before we do, I do want to acknowledge the passing of one of our beloved principals here in Atlanta Public Schools and an impactful educator, Dr. Susan Krim McClendon. She passed away last month. As principal of Woodson Park Academy in the Douglas Cluster and as a middle school teacher in APS, Dr. Krim McClendon always put her students first and encouraged all of us to do the same. At this time, I will ask for a moment of silence in remembrance of Dr. Susan Krim McClendon. Thank you. Now, to continue our legislative portion of today's meeting, I want to thank everyone for joining us for this board meeting here this evening. Whether you are here in the auditorium at the Center for Learning and Leadership or watching our live feed, we appreciate your continued support of our students and of Atlanta Public Schools as we continue to work together to ensure all students graduate college and career ready. Before I ask Dr. Kostarfin to provide her official remarks, I wanted to share a few announcements of my own and also start off with a recognition. I now invite Board Member Olympiadis, who represents District 3, to come forward and recognize some of our deserving students.
Mr. Herrera, I believe you're still here. I know we've lost a lot of the debate team from Grady. This evening I'll be recognizing very appropriately for tonight's tone the debate team from Grady High School. Please come on down. Come on down and join me with everyone that's still here, and I really appreciate y'all. It's a great night for them to learn about debate, but just so you know, they are the 10th consecutive state winner for speech and debate in the state of Georgia, and I just really thought that this would really be an appropriate time to recognize them. They just won this past, not this literal past weekend, but the last weekend in February, and I had the opportunity to go greet them on Sunday afternoon as they drove back, please correct me if I'm wrong, from Valdosta. And I was really excited to be a part of their excitement. And Mr. Herrera, please tell me who's still with you from your coaches. Ms. Willoughby. Okay, all right. So coaches, Mr. Herrera and Ms. Willoughby are here. And Mr. Bailey, come on down, because Mr. Bailey is an alumnus of this organization who has come back to further his mentoring skills with the kids, and I just think that that's really great. So I want to give you just, not too much because we've spent a lot of time this evening. I want to just give you a few highlights of the Grady High School speech and debate team. They are referred to as the Jesters. The coaches of the team are Mr. Mario Herrera and Miss Lisa Willoughby and Mr. Lucas Bailey, who I mentioned is an alumnus of the team. The teachers, Susan Ramsey and Nikolai Curtis, travel with the team and act as judges, chaperones, and mentors. So a couple of fun facts. First, the Grady High School speech and debate team was established in 1985 and is the only team in the state of Georgia to have state champion in every event offered by the Georgia Forensic Coaches Association, which is referred to as the GFCA. The team recently won the overall sweepstakes award for the 10th time in a row at the GFCA state championships. This award is given to the school who accrues the most points in 12 different events. In addition, the Public Forum Debate Squad, which has 2 teams, closed out the GFCA state tournament, meaning that they advanced to the final round. Both teams advanced to the final round for the first time a school has ever accomplished this feat at the state championships. This really commendable group here. The Jesters won the Sweepstakes Award at the National Speech and Debate Association's National Tournament, the largest high school academic competition in the world. The Grady High School Policy Debate Squad was named champions, National Association at the Urban Debate League's National Tournament in 2012. In 2016, the Jesters met with several of President Obama's policy advisors at the White House compound. And the amazing experience was arranged by a former Grady High School debater who worked at the council's office at the time. The Jesters host an annual speech and debate tournament at Grady High School called the Carter/King Quest for the Dream. It is one of the largest, most competitive in the state, named to honor the memory of Yolanda King, the daughter of Dr. and Mrs. Martin Luther King Jr., who attended Grady High School, and to honor the work and legacy of President and Mrs. Jimmy Carter. We have had a host of notable judges, including members of the Atlanta Board of Education and Councilwoman and now Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. They have one of the most active parent booster clubs around, constantly judging, coordinating, raising money, and offering scholarships for all students who want to participate in speech and debate. It is a total and complete community involvement at its finest. And again, congratulations to the Jesters. You've really made us proud.
All right, so congrats again to the Grady Jesters, and thank you, Board Member Olympiadis, for that recognition. We now move on to the announcements and the comments. First, I want to make the board and everyone aware that March is Women's History Month. Women's History Month actually began in 1982 as Women's History Week, but expanded to a full month by 1987. All of our presidents since that time have issued annual proclamations to celebrate the generations of women who have contributed to the well-being of our communities, country, and world. APS each year does its part to recognize such contributions, and this year will be the same. I invite everyone to monitor our district and schools' websites and social media channels over the coming weeks for events and programs in the celebration of the month. I do want to make a special note of one program, the 12th annual Shirley Clark Franklin's lecture series hosted by the Coretta Scott King Young Women's Leadership Academy. For the first time, the school is inviting other young women across the district to join in this valuable and insightful lecture series. This year's lecture will be held on Tuesday, March 26th, and will feature my dear friend Adrienne White, Vice President of Development and Business Strategies at Citizens Trust Bank. Miss White is also a member of this board's audit committee, led by Leslie Grant. We are looking forward to that event and all others related to Women's History Month. Also during March, APS celebrates National Reading Month, which was founded to celebrate Dr. Seuss, one of the most beloved of all authors of children's books. Literacy is the most vital of educational skills, so this month is really aimed at giving students a chance to improve their reading skills. Additionally, if we encourage our students to read every single day of this month, by the end of the month, reading should become a daily habit. Many of our elementary schools are sponsoring reading programs. Some are even hosting book character parades. From a district-wide perspective, the K-5 Office of Literacy is hosting a contest on Twitter with the theme of "Why is reading important to me?" Participating teachers and classes are encouraged to post a short video or picture collage that demonstrates or explains why reading is important. Winners will receive a book for each student in the class. I also want to remind everyone about the APS Race to Read campaign launched back in November. APS challenged students, teachers, staff, and parents to read daily and collectively reach 2 million minutes of reading by the end of the school year. Well, our community hit the goal within 6 weeks, so the bar has been raised to more than 13 million minutes. Check out our progress at www.beanstack.com/race-to-read. And March is both Music in Our Schools Month and Youth Art Month, as we continue our focus on preparing students to have choice-filled lives. This board and this administration believes strongly in the power of music and the arts to engage students and keep them motivated in school, which is why we have embraced Dr. Christarfin's vision for whole child development. APS remains one of the few districts in the state that continues to offer a variety of music programs and arts programs, including band and orchestra at the elementary level. And this will always be the case. We are a district of talented students, and we love to showcase their work. In fact, we regularly invite our students to perform before board meetings. And for those of you who were here in person earlier, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Brown Middle School Chorus, led by Sandra Eccles. I also hope that you noticed the large display of student artwork in the lobby and in front of the dais as you arrived. This artwork from 16 APS schools was previously featured in the opening of the City of Atlanta's One Atlanta Museum at the Hotel Claremont on request of our mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms. Additionally, the mural canvases you see around the boardroom were painted by students, Carver STEAM Academy, Grady High School, and North Atlanta High School as part of Wonder Roots Off the Wall project during the Super Bowl live events at Centennial Park. We are proud of our students and appreciate the great work of our music and art educators as we celebrate this month. We have many of them with us tonight, so please stand so the board can recognize you. Yeah. And especially want to shout out Sarah Womack for her leadership of the department. Dr. Womack is our district's arts coordinator, and I can tell you that her team is doing great work across the school system, so you are greatly appreciated. I should also note that this week is National School Breakfast Week. Our celebration actually started last Friday on March 1st, in celebration of Dr. Seuss's birthday. On that day, the APS breakfast menu featured green eggs and a ham, tasty. Cafeteria managers wore the famous red and white stovepipe hat from The Cat in the Hat, along with their daily morning smiles. APS will continue to celebrate National School Breakfast Week with the theme, Wake Up for School Breakfast. The menu will feature these delicious items like turkey sausage biscuit, mini strawberry pancakes, fish and grits, peach oatmeal, banana muffins, scrambled eggs with cheese. I should also note that our nutrition team serves breakfast to about 20,000 students and adults each day. So we really thank them for getting each school day started in a nutritious way. I also want to make everyone aware that this week is National School Social Work Week, sponsored by the School Social Work Association of America. And March is the National Social Work Month. The theme is Lucky Enough. Atlanta Public Schools currently employs 40 full-time social workers, which includes homeless education and truancy social workers. The primary role of the school social worker is to remove barriers to education so that children are free to learn and explore in a safe environment. Internal and external pressures are complex and multi-layered, ranging from abuse and suicidal ideation or a loss of a family member to a lack of stable housing or appropriate clothing for school. School social workers are a critical part of school culture as they meet our daily needs, the daily needs of our students and families. I know I speak on behalf of every board member when I express appreciation for the hard work that they do for our students every single day. I want to recognize our social workers joining us here today. Please stand to be recognized, particularly Dr. Anthony, who leads the department. Thank you so much for all that y'all do. The board will be voting on a resolution later in the meeting and recognizing their work and this week. We also want to appreciate you for these bags. I'm not sure what's in them, but I can't wait. I'm gonna open them right after this meeting. I think last year there were flowers. There were flower pots, and I was happy to report that the pots last year, my flower grew, and this year is a great book.
The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog and Other Stories from a Child Psychiatrist's Notebook about traumatized children, how you can teach about loss, love, and healing. It's wonderful.
So thank you so much.
And a bookmark.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anthony and team, for all the hard work that y'all put in each and every day. And we appreciate y'all sticking around. During the last board meeting, moving on to the next topic, we provided an update about the System of Excellent Schools, the next big step in the APS journey of transformation. Through this effort, we are knitting together our important initiatives and work stream into a more cohesive whole, while deepening implementation of the strategic plan and the core tenets of our charter system operating model. This work also lays the groundwork for the next strategic plan for Atlanta Public Schools. We launched the System of Excellent Schools conversation in August with one goal in mind: ensuring that every Atlanta child can attend a public school that prepares them well for college, career, and life. While we can celebrate strong gains over the past several years, this board knew that the district had more work to do to deliver on the promise for our mission, for each child in our community. When we met last month, we reviewed three main components of the System of Excellent Schools: a vision of excellence, an excellent schools framework, and an excellent schools support and action framework. These drafts came after 8 months of hard work that included well over 100 hours of community service, or community engagement, and stakeholder engagement. I am really proud of the work that this board and our community did together on this strategy, and I'm confident that this work will set the stage for the next chapter of our journey of transformation. While I believe that this is the right work, I am also cognizant of the fact that our community still has questions about what we are attempting to do and how we are going to accomplish the strategy. Some of the misinformation that is out there, including claims that this is about selling our schools or privatizing education, could not be further from the truth and has only served to create confusion among some of our stakeholders. Setting aside these intentional attempts to spread lies, I do understand that there are legitimate questions and concerns about the district's capacity to take on a new performance framework and the implications for taking on such a heavy lift. This is why I am recommending that we phase this work and start with adopting our vision of excellence for schools and the corresponding portrait of graduate here this evening. It is my hope that this vision serves as an anchor for our next strategic plan, a process that will begin in earnest in the fall. In the meantime, as part of this amended action tonight, I will be asking the administration to begin considering how we realize this vision, including which aspects of the vision we should prioritize in terms of measuring and evaluating the progress we are making in realizing this vision for excellence across all of our schools so that we truly have a system of excellent schools. I look forward to the continued dialogue from the community, from teachers, from parents, from various stakeholders across the system in the city as we work together to shape the future of Atlanta Public Schools. Next, and finally, as we think about the future of APS, we are always aware that we are standing on the shoulders of giants who came before us. There is no giant in the history of this school system that is more significant than Dr. Alonzo A. Krim. Given the anticipated closure of Krim High School, this board and administration have been seeking a way to formally recognize the legacy of Dr. Alonzo A. Krim, the former superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools, and the first African American to lead the school system in that role. The board appointed an ad hoc committee to make a recommendation for honoring Dr. Krim under, well, hold on. The board did not appoint an ad hoc committee. We are waiving the policy, FDC, which requires that the naming committee include the district member in which the building sits. Since we do not have that seat filled because of a recent resignation, we have to waive the policy in order to honor Dr. Krim. In 1973, Dr. Krim became the very first African-American school superintendent in the South when he was named superintendent of APS. During his 15-year tenure, he turned the focus of race toward a community of believers which would work together toward the education of all of Atlanta's children. Dr. Krim later served as the professor of education at Georgia State University and established the chair of the Benjamin E. Mays Professor of Urban Leadership. I now invite Dr. Kastarfin to make her own remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During our work session earlier today, we heard two presentations related to our 2020 strategic plan. For our first presentation, Assistant Superintendent Olivine Roberts looked at the progress of the Target 2021, the district's initiative to provide remediation and academic support to those students who were directly affected by the cheating scandal nearly 10 years ago regarding the CRCT assessment. As you know, the remaining students in Target 2021 are all now in high school. I want to remind the public that it was during this administration that we took the initiative to track down every student in the district, still in the district, and did try to find those who were outside the district who were affected by the cheating scandal. It is with Dr. Tim Sass at Georgia State University that we were able to accelerate that effort and actually create a plan and an assessment to go along with it. We found more than 3,000 students were still in the district, and we made a commitment with this board's support to provide additional supports to those students with the assistance of our partners like Communities in Schools and Public Consulting Group. We named the program Target 2021 because we would need to continue these efforts until the last cohort graduates in 2021. We do continue to evaluate our efforts, the tutoring, the wraparound services, mentoring, parent involvement, and family supports. As Dr. Roberts reported, while the evaluation does not reflect the impact of all of these services as being statistically significant, but we do see areas where it is, such as attendance, grade point average, and graduation rates. Our parents and students continue to report high rates of satisfaction with the additional support they're receiving as they get prepared for graduation. We know that nothing is perfect, and we know that kids were not served for far too long to be able to turn everything around as it relates to the CRCT scandal, but there are a number of students who needed support, and we don't know if we hadn't offered the support what may or may not have happened. But we are proud to now service about 800 students, and Dr. Sass has recommended that we do one more round of evaluation because as the students graduate, the size of students to study gets smaller, and it becomes more difficult to be able to actually give data that would be statistically significant. We'll continue to incorporate the feedback and strengthen the program where we can and support the final classes of these students. Our second presentation was done by Chief Financial Officer Lisa Bracken, who gave us the fiscal year 2019 financial update. I want to thank everyone for their updates during the work session, and with that, I wanted to do a couple of big highlights. First, state basketball championships. Finally, we're closing in on the end of the high school basketball season, and I am pleased to announce that 2 of our teams remain in contention by advancing to the championship round of the Georgia High School Association tournament in their respective divisions. Congratulations to Douglas High School girls team and the Therrell High School boys team. Both teams will play on Thursday, March 7th. We wish against each other because it would just be so exciting, but they will be at the Macon Coliseum in Macon, Georgia. The Douglas Astros girl teams will face off against the Early County High School team for the AA girls title at 2 p.m., and the Therrell Panthers will compete against Vidalia High School okay, we're going to win. For the AA boys title at 4 p.m. Good luck to both teams. We are so proud of you. We know you're going to bring home the W. And I'll close by saying that we are excited to share that the people who sit here, our school board members, the members of the Atlanta Board of Education, will be honored the week of March 18th because it is School Board Appreciation Week. We wanted to take some time now to thank each of you for doing the thankless role of being a school board member. As I know that you have a lot of pressure coming from many different perspectives. You have a lot of people that you have to represent and voices that you have to hear and bring to the table, and it's not always in agreement, but you are working as hard as you can to make it possible for us to get to positions for the district, for our kids and our schools and our families first. As superintendent, I've been very appreciative of this board and will continue to work on our journey of transformation for Atlanta Public Schools, especially as we consider tonight's vision and framework for a system of excellent schools, which I know we'll be talking about in a moment. I am very privileged and honored to work with a very hands-on, engaged school board. They do ask a lot of questions and push very hard. So I know everyone doesn't see that, but it does happen every single day. I don't think there's a single day that I don't hear from someone and we aren't talking about something and we aren't trying to get to the bottom of an issue. It may seem small. It could be even beef in the cafeteria. It could be something that goes from beef in the cafeteria to saving the world as part of that effort. And I think that everyone looks at that seriously and tries to make headway. So it's detailed things and it's bigger visionary things, but I want everyone to know that at least where I sit, I know that these are people who really care about education, this district, and the city of Atlanta. I visited classrooms with them, talked in the public with them, played sports with them, and we go across the district and service not just for individual schools where they may have been elected based on their area, but it's actually for APS as a whole. I can attest to the fact that the board's committed to doing what's right by Atlanta students, even though we do struggle and we know that the decisions are really hard. I hope that we can all depend on the board to work in service for our children and assure that they are indeed on a pathway of success so they have choice-filled lives through college and careers. I'm pleased to take this moment in time, and I hope you'll join me in recognizing them for their contributions to Atlanta Public Schools. Mr. Estevez, this concludes my remarks for this evening, and I am excited about our consent agenda.
Thank you so much, Dr. Starfin, and thank you for those kind words. Please present the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair and members of the board, I am pleased to submit consent agenda items 5.01 through 8.03 to the board for approval. I wanted to just make sure that people knew that the first reading, I think you heard about that tonight, 5.04 is the APS equity policy, and yeah, that was the one I wanted to highlight. And so with that in mind, I'd like to submit these agenda items for board approval.
Thank you so much, Dr. Starfin. Can I have a motion to approve? It's been properly moved by Nancy Meister, seconded by Ishay Collins. Is there discussion?
Yes.
Leslie?
I would just like to make sure, so we have a consent agenda for getting through things, and our job is to take the recommendation of the leadership as presented, and we do have an opportunity to ask questions. The final documents are posted on the Friday before our Monday board meeting, and I would just like to ask formally for there to be a little more documentation, a little more information that gives us and the public some understanding about what these issues, what these pieces are. Certainly in terms of the financial ones, maybe the scope of work and what's being addressed with these would be very helpful. So for future, I would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to attend this meeting remotely. I specifically want to just thank the Equity Task Force committee members and who are Erica Mitchell, Leslie Grant, Ishay Collins, and myself. I want to thank Byron Amos for his leadership on that committee, and I want to thank the community members who served so ably and with such dedication as we developed this equity policy. This is the product of much hard work, of many hours of discussion within the community. We have taken the community's desires and suggestions into account, and as a result, we have developed the first equity policy in the history of Atlanta Public Schools. We submit it tonight to the board for first read. We will follow our process over the next 30 days to make further revisions to it before we approve it on final approval in April. This equity policy will guide everything that we do in Atlanta Public Schools from this point forward. every decision, every dollar, every process, and every program should be guided and should be informed by the statement that we make tonight, that we want to ensure that every single child in Atlanta Public Schools is what they need to become successful in their college and career and in their adult lives. So I thank my colleagues and Byron Amos for his leadership on this, and we submit policy BBBB to the Board of Education for first read this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for those words, and thank you for your work on this as well, as policy chair and also as one of the leaders to bring this to a close. Any other questions or comments? All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. Open the vote.
I seem to have lost connectivity to Board Docs. Can you record my vote in favor by voice?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 9.01, authorization to adopt the plan for the closure of Alonzo A. Krim Open Campus High School. Can I get a motion to approve agenda item 9.01? Been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Nancy Meister. Is there discussion? Michelle, then Ishay.
Could we just, if Dr. Christopherson does not mind, just walk us through, like we did at our last public hearing, what exactly is happening with Krim and the consolidation of the schools? Or, Mr. Jernigan, if you don't mind, just informing the public of what is happening.
Right. So, thank you. I would direct your attention to the agenda item itself. It's 9.01 for the public if you're interested. We are recommending the closure of Krim, the program, and the reconstitution of West End Academy, and an adoption of a new design for non-traditional programs that includes a performance learning center model with virtual learning and other credit recovery and acceleration programs. The changes to these school programs will be effective at the beginning of the 1920 school year, and the Krim closure would be phased out in order to help the students. We just want to be sure that current students, 11th graders, get to graduate from Krim in 2020. So we're working with each student individually to see exactly what they need. The consolidation of the existing programs at Krim High School, Atlanta Virtual Academy and West End Academy would help with effectiveness and efficiency for students who have received differentiated supports through these various programs. As we explained, over the last 9 years, the enrollment at Krim has steadily declined. Both Krim and West End have the capacity to effectively serve actually more students if we had a stronger, more consolidated model. The proposed consolidation would create more coherence in non-AMs and better enable students to choose their best option toward graduation. Bringing the alternative programs in alignment with Atlanta College and Career Academy, which the board has already approved and is underway for getting off the ground, so that students from across the district could have access to a variety of pathways with the Georgia Department of Education courses that are currently unavailable to them. Be tailored to students and include a combination of face-to-face instruction, virtual learning, and blended program. Consistent with with our past practices with restructured schooling programs, the staff from Crim and West End would be reapplying for their positions with the newly created non-traditional program. Staff members would be granted priority interview status to apply for these positions in the program and for any other vacant positions in the district. We did hold public hearings regarding the Crim closure on February 5th and February 27th, and this is what we talked about at those meetings. I know that some people believe or have said that we're actually closing the building. We know that the board is still doing its facility master planning work, and that has not been completed. So based on those conversations, we have not made a determination regarding the building itself. So as the programs are consolidated, we're still going to have them there, and when the board continues to work through its facilities planning, we will have a better idea of what actually happens at the site. In the meantime, we'll have a more aligned program and execute any transitions plans to support the successful restructuring of our non-traditional programs in the district. And to remind everyone, the non-traditional bucket is big. We have different non-traditional schools. And so you might know one around discipline called Forest Hills. That's considered a non-traditional school. The three that we are talking about are specifically about non-traditional schools that serve students who are struggling to graduate and need credit support or additional supports in schools. So the three that do that for APS are West End, Crim, and Virtual Academy by and large. So we're not looking at Forest Hills, we're just looking at those three non-traditional programs to help with dropout support or to avoid dropouts and give students support to graduate.
I can't tell if it's there, we're back on. And just as a follow-up to that, the Crim building will remain open for this coming school year, and as we consider what we are doing with the master's facilities plan, I just want
Mr. Chair, members of the
board
member Olympiadas, that is correct.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Leslie?
Well, can we get a commitment that it will remain open until the College and Career Academy is online and ready to go?
Well, hold on. You don't get, okay, just thank you. We, Mr. Chair, members of the board member Grant, we support that concept, but I do not know what the board is going to do as it relates to its work with facility master planning. So that part of that decision is in your hands as you continue that discussion, but it would be our desire as an administration to support what you just recommended. And if y'all can make that decision sooner rather than later, that probably would be helpful if you don't mind doing a one-off while you're working on facility master planning.
All right.
Do we need to make a motion to support that from the board?
Mr. Chairman, the board can make such a motion. However, that particular topic, I think we'd have to think about whether that's actually advertised as being on the agenda. The closure is, but I'm not sure that a commitment to keep it open for a certain period of time has been advertised.
And my concern, thank you, Mr. General Counsel. My concern would be setting that precedent, and I think that's something that concept is something that I personally agree with, and I think a lot of folks on this board agree with. But I think we should at least continue to vet that out and discuss it. Dr. Christopherson?
Yeah, and just so that you don't think that if you don't do it tonight or sometime soon that something horrible would happen. The College and Career Academy and our work with the non-traditional schools are actually on the same schedule. So if all goes well and is on point, fall of 2020, which is 1 year away, one school year away, everything we anticipate for it to be in natural alignment. But if you wanted to put a finer point on it, you could. But I would say, given what we know about the planning and the schedule already, There's nothing that looks like it would put undue pressure on you for tonight or for some kind of quick turnaround on a vote regarding the matter. So the only thing that would happen is something went off, schedule, but we're not anticipating that. And we, like I said, you've approved the money, we've raised the money. It's just about us implementing it. So for what it's worth, you're already on train tracks that are perfectly aligned, and it's not urgent for tonight.
Chair Estevez?
Yes.
I think the reason for voicing that publicly is just to ensure that there does not, a recommendation does not come back from the administration due to unforeseen circumstances, and we end up with a gap in the construction program, the culinary program, things that are actually really working for a lot of our kids. So that's the reason for wanting to state that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And I encourage you to keep that part of the dialogue. I know the administration will, but also encourage you to continue to raise that. There's been a motion made on the closure. It has been seconded. Are there any other questions or comments? Please open the vote. Moving on to agenda item 9.02, renaming of the CLL building. Can I get a motion to approve agenda item 9.02?
Second.
Wait, and I should also say, I don't know if it's too late, but we're also waiving policy FDC.
The waiving.
Yeah,
the waiving
it's in the action, but just wanted to make sure. So let me start over again. That is the renaming of the Center of Learning and Leadership building and waiver of policy FDC to rename this building the Alonzo A. Krim Center for Learning and Leadership. Is there a motion? It's been properly moved by Nancy Meister, seconded by Ishay Collins. Discussion? All right. If you have a question or comment, please voice it.
I think I just have a comment. I think it's a great idea to. I think it's a great idea to name down our. Excuse me, Valerie. It is. I just think it's a great idea, and it's an honor to name our headquarters after Alonzo A. Krim. Growing up in East Atlanta, that was always a sentiment that we, as even young students, even talked about the fact that why wasn't the headquarters named after him, and so I'm just really excited that we are making that decision today on this, on this board. So thank you, guys.
Dr. Sarpin?
I just want to say that it is such an honor to have Dr. Krim on the name on this building. He is the first African-American superintendent, the first African-American superintendent in the South, is a North Star for what we're trying to do for kids, and it is hard to stay focused when there's so many different competing agendas and priorities happening all around us. And I just want to say personally, it gives me hope and inspiration knowing that he will be looking down on us every day, helping us with strength and focus and commitment to kids. And I just am so honored that this is happening, at least while I'm here and during my tenure. We love the family. We want to say our condolences, but also thank you for allowing us to be part of your family's legacy and your history with Atlanta and Atlanta Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Carr-Starfin. It's been properly moved and seconded. Please open the vote. Thank you so much. And now for agenda item 9.03, creating a system of excellent schools. As previously mentioned, I recommended earlier that we amend the agenda item as presented. As you all know, we prepared this action item to reflect the latest work that the public had seen during the last board meeting in February. Since that time, we have engaged in many more conversations, which have led me to believe that this is the best course of action, which is to phase this work over time, which gives the community time to engage with us, but it also gives the board opportunities to have significant input through its vote on the direction of the System of Excellent School strategy. As such, I am recommending that the board adopt the vision of excellence for all schools and the corresponding portrait of a graduate this evening. I am also recommending that with this action, the administration begin working on on how to realize this vision as part of a strategic planning process, and include within that work how we might begin to measure and evaluate the various components of this vision over time. That is the recommendation. There were also a couple changes to the wording that to the action that was posted on Friday. The latest action is posted with the items as amended on board docs. With that, can I get a motion? It's been properly moved by Nancy Meister, seconded by Ishay Collins. Is there discussion and questions?
Yes.
So, Candace, Michelle, Leslie, Erica,
Okay,
and Ishay.
yeah,
Go ahead.
it doesn't
Go
have
ahead.
to
Yeah.
go in that order, thank you. I have several concerns with that. None of these, I think, will be a surprise, I hope, to many people in the room, with the System of Excellence schools overall, with some of the outstanding questions that I still have. What I am weighing, to be frank, is how much we can know ahead of time the answers to some of these outstanding questions. Would there ever be full answers before we do a phased vote? The main ones relate to a lot of what I heard today from public comment, and I won't repeat them all here, but I did hear a general, obviously, sense that people are concerned about what might turn into a rating system, concerned about associated costs, concerned about this idea that this will be a, quote, portfolio schools program. And I did hear some, I thought, interesting points about two things, about us saying that equity is a priority and a guiding star in everything we do, but putting the cart before the horse in a bit. If we don't have our guiding star in place, and then making a decision like this, that might be a different order that we need to operate in. And then another concern I heard, and I have personally, is the difference between this and, maybe I shouldn't use the word difference, but the turnaround policy itself and what we're already doing, and we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this with others, how this plan impacts what it says about that. Is there a difference? Is the juice worth the squeeze here? And if in many ways we're already doing a lot of what I see in here, we've already in some ways done. So I understand that. I appreciate board Chair Estevez, and I apologize, I wasn't here earlier when this happened, but the amendment to the Pitch Control Board action tonight, but I also hear that, somebody made the point that, even if we did a partial or phased-in vote, that gets us a little bit, I guess, more time, but it still starts us down the road. And so I want to be cognizant of that. I also, for the record, want to say, of course, I want excellent schools for every student in Atlanta Public Schools. That's why I'm sitting here right now. That's probably why everybody is sitting here right now in this room. And I think the vision of excellence is a good, the actual vision of excellence that we've developed is very well thought out and I think well worded. That's it for now, but I'm looking forward to my colleagues' comments as well.
Erica?
Well, I am in support of excellent schools. My community gave me a lot of questions and had a lot of concerns. So I just want to start off with saying I am in support of needs assessment. And the only way we could possibly get a needs assessment is through the framework for excellent schools. But also, it lacks a third-party review and input to receive honest and real feedback from families, students, and most importantly, our employees. As we are engaging in our communities with Excellent School, I believe we miss the opportunity considering community feedback when it comes to rating and ranking our schools. Other forms of governance, I am very active in participating with the Excellent Schools framework, although we still have concerns as what the structure is. I will continue to lend my voice to ensure that community input is important and considered as we move forward, but the ranking and rating of the schools is what drove us down the issue with the cheating scandal. And it's difficult to rank and rate a school that do not receive the same resources. There are disparities in our district, but closing merging part charter operators, empowerment zones, or other forms of governance should be never taken as an option until we thoroughly understand the economic impact for these for our communities in the district. I will also request that we have a detailed timeline built out for the framework to have a clear milestones through community engagement and feedback, further through board approval, through the process of the final vote. That's all I have to say.
Leslie?
So, again, third person to say it in a row, I am completely for the concept of building something that will, the fruit of that will be excellent schools. Since the beginning of this, though, I have been concerned that instead of, this idea of excellent schools, we really should be concerned about ensuring that we have excellent seats, so that we're focused not on the unit of the school, but rather on the seats in those schools. One of the pieces that came up a little bit late in the game, but certainly not too late. I mean, we've been working at this for a while. But the things that came up that I don't see worked in as thoroughly as I would have liked was that we had a focus on the system and how we are going to have a framework for the system, the central system supporting those seats and supporting those schools, because unless and until all of your kids are showing up on time and they're all being well fed and all of their teachers are the best teachers in the classroom because we've done all that work and they have the right social workers, all of these things that do and are the responsibility of the central system, until all of those things are working a little bit better, I don't think it's the right move to, to put this onto the schools. I had heard from, I had reached out. I know that the district had done a lot of work. The facilitators had done a lot of work, and I will say, having worked through a lot of these processes with independent facilitators, I really did appreciate the work that these folks did. Thought it was thorough. They listened very well. They put things together. They assimilated a lot of information. There were many sessions, and so for everyone who did not take the time to really read through this, I think it's worth it. Read through it. I do not think that you are going to come up with a lot of things that you see that you would object to. There are measures in this, and one of the issues with the measures came about from people sitting down and saying, oh, well, in order for us to have this, then we need to understand this. So it's a long list. We have a lot of ways to measure a lot of those. There are some that need to be developed and worked out. So in listening to all of that, I still feel uneasy about, I had asked for a delay. I was not, to my satisfaction, given a reason that this has to be done on this time limit. We don't, in terms of why can't we wait another month, do a little bit different kind of engagement so that we have a better buy-in. I did reach out on my own through a Facebook post and ask people to contact me over the weekend. Again, all very late and sort of rushed to it, but some really good, thoughtful comments from some really well people who, again, just concerned because we have all of this. And if we haven't been doing all of this, what have we been doing? And we did a lot of work. I know I put a ton of energy into the turnaround plan, and that work was, I think, really meaningful, and I really respect the work that's being done as a result of that. And I think that will prove to be very, some really good, excellent seat building work as it continues to go on. I don't buy into a lot of the rhetoric that's been thrown around this. I mean, there's just a lot of people who have their own agenda, who are trying to get in other folks' heads about this. Think people, please read the documents. If you don't have the time to read this, please don't speak up. Just try not to get in other people's heads unless you have time to read it. That being said, we have signature programming. One of the metrics I do appreciate that this looks at is a quality of implementation of the signature programming. We do not have signature programming thoroughly vetted, thoroughly operational in all of our clusters yet. But embedded within that signature programming, especially the IB, which I've been a huge proponent of since the get-go, is the definition of a learner, which aligns with the definition in here. We have built a system of governance that is at every school level, that is at every cluster level. We have, we have one of the most sophisticated data collection devices in the state of Georgia. And so getting back to like how and why is this necessary? And then the cost. So if we are going to do this, and I appreciate that we did not have to pay for the facilitation of this, that is not out of the taxpayer's pocket, but the work behind this is good. I would like us to postpone it, just to take a little more time to understand what we want to get out of it, but what we already have, what we have built into the district. And what, why we are approving this $725,000 line item. What is that going to pay for? What are we going to get for it? And how is that going to be used to, what is the time frame for that to, show results in terms of this? The idea that there is again, just some alarm bell ringing around this, and people's fear that we're not going to be doing school improvement, we're not going to be doing the quality seats work until we get this done. We are doing that now. The system better be doing that now. So if If we are saying that we need this, and I have this issue with the policy, the equity policy as well. If we need this paperwork, if we need this framework, and this is going to be the thing, this is going to be the trigger along with the money to make us pay the attention we need to be paying every day in our classrooms, and somehow this is going to bring a different level of support, intervention, and productivity to the lives of people in our, and is not going to be seen and felt, which again, the feedback I'm getting is that this is one more thing we have to do. So on top of doing IB, I've got to look at this too. So I would like that extra time so that I can be, the community can rest assured that this is not going to be one more thing. This is not going to be something else that the teachers in our schools have to do. If we have a desire for autonomy, which is one of these things, tomorrow, with our charter system, we could say, here is your $50 million, whatever it is, and allow a cluster to go manage itself because that's what they feel they need to do, and they can provide the supports better. We can do that. So I just think my reticence with this, we have a lot of the support. There is no big, firm commitment that we're going to work on the district stuff first and then go to the schools. And I just, again, I'm not convinced that there's a great reason that we need to do this tonight.
Michelle? If I can please have members of the audience to allow board members to ask questions and comment, that'd be greatly appreciated.
All right, so I just wanted to share with the public some of my concerns that I shared with my fellow board members with respect to my view on where we are headed. I do appreciate the fact that we have broken this down into phases, if you will. I have always, okay,
I'm sitting next to her and I can't hear. Can y'all take it out in the hall?
Leslie, if you can allow Michelle to proceed, that'd be great.
Can y'all hear me? Am I loud enough? So I wanted to share with the public some of my thoughts that I've shared with my fellow board members with respect to this work. I do, and I think we heard plenty of it this evening, this particular model that's being followed in other peer districts continues to kind of cloud the work that we're trying to do here in Atlanta. And I have consistently said that if we are going to have this work at all, it has to be Atlanta specific and Atlanta driven. With that said, I'm in full support of our current Go Team structure. I do not believe we need another governance model in place. We do have other options that we use in the district, and if those are deemed necessary, I've already made it very clear that the fiscal impacts of those decisions need to be presented before we agree to move to those models. I have also, whoops, sorry, I've lost my email with my notes. So I've also asked and was very clear and explicit. I was one of the board members that was able to go to Denver, and I was very clear there that there is absolutely nothing that they are doing there that we need to be doing. We are a charter system. We have all the flexibility we need under our current model. All of our communities have different wants and needs. We are cluster-based, which really builds out our communities. I really want to thank the advisory committee members and Go Team members who spoke publicly this meeting about their concerns with this framework. I take that very seriously because this is, that's where I was, right? I used to be your local school council person and then your Go Team person and your cluster advisory person. So I really do believe in this process of building out community and know that we have a lot of work to do throughout the district to empower our communities and our schools to have a voice. I also do believe that we need to have a needs assessment for our schools, and while we have plenty of indicators internally, I don't necessarily think that we need to be looking at all 70 recommendations that this board has provided. I think as the work gets started with the 30 indicators that we have in place, we can further evaluate what we need and not need. I was curious to learn that through this process that lots of people do somehow still feel uncomfortable in sharing their feedback of what's going on in the district. And so I think that third-party idea might be very relevant for communities and schools and employees so that they have a free avenue to provide real feedback. And I've also have voiced with my fellow board members this idea of rating and ranking schools. And I've made it very clear that many people across the district have been kind enough to remind me of what I lived through as well, which was the previous ranking and ranking that led to the serious crumble of this system that we are now trying to positively bring back online. I, again, thank the board chair for listening to all my feedback. A lot of the edits that are currently online follow what I have requested, especially this idea that we put things into phases. I have also asked Board Chair Estevez if the community could please provide its feedback on the current executive summary, which was just published for y'all on Friday, so that we can continue to gather information, since so many people this evening seem to feel as though they have not been heard through this process.
Thank you. Isha?
Yes, so a lot has been said, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood from the beginning where we were. We as a board, we goaled ourselves to create a quality seat plan, which was the cumulative process of bringing everything that we've done and synthesize it all into one framework. And everyone on this board expressed the need of continuing things like making sure that things like signature program remained, was able to continue, and cluster planning, and even some of the turnaround, the things that comprise the turnaround strategy, that those things were able to continue, be able to continue, but also to be synthesized into one document, into one framework. So from my understanding, from our retreats, I never got the sense from anyone that anyone felt like this was an entirely new thing that needed to launch. So for me, I think I'm just kind of shocked a little bit to hear board members say this tonight, like it wasn't even stated in our last month's board meeting presentation. So for me, I'm just trying to figure. I didn't see when we started this process, and even all the meetings moving forward, it was not seen as anything new, but that we were trying to at least do a synergetic effort to bring everything that we've been doing in one document or one framework, which is why I do agree with you, Leslie, when you say that we're doing all of these things. How is this something new? I never saw it as anything new. I actually saw it for what you've actually articulated as well, that we're doing all of this work already. And so, which is why I do understand it. I've expressed from day one, and I've maintained it, and those who have talked to me about it knew I had expression, and I expressed it at the last two board meetings. I had reservations and did not want to move forward with the action framework, because I did firmly believe that you have to have if you get to the outcome before you even think about the vision and what that looks like, yes, you're setting yourself up for some problematic situations. So I was very clear about the action, the action piece of this, which included things like the portfolio, the potential closures, what those options look like. But what I was promising to hear, that we did listen to community feedback and try to answer as many questions as possible about the framework, but that we are moving into a more phased approach. And Mr. Chair, please correct me if I'm wrong. You're asking for us tonight to adopt the vision and the corresponding portrait of a graduate. The executive summary is not the new document. It is pretty much like it's just been minimized from all the presentations. So if you look on page 2, what I think you're asking for us to do is to adopt the first 2 columns, which is the vision of excellence. Only the first column, okay? Only the first column, which is the vision of excellence, You're asking for us to continue to do this work along with ongoing community and stakeholder engagement, and authorize the board to continue along with the administration the development of what deems to be columns 2 and 3, which is the systems, continue to do work on the excellent school framework and the excellent school support and action framework. Also, what it looks like you're also asking us through the revision is to continue the exploration of those supports and actions as part of the strategic planning process. So again, like I think what was shared, this was not the end all be all, but this is the beginning of a conversation. This is the beginning of a framework that is not in its final form, but we are taking a step back to consider what those actions look like, which for me, I expressed from the beginning, and am pleased that tonight won't be a final decision on those things. The last thing I wanted to, talk about as well, and just a hurtful thing to see, just the community engagement, community and stakeholder engagement, just making sure that everyone stay a part of this process. And it was just very hurtful for me. Groups of parents, both in colors, let's be very clear, both purple, red, however you coalesce or build your own coalition, to see two group of parents and to see that if one side doesn't agree with another, that becomes an issue. They're on the south side and west side of town. And majority of the parents that came to speak in those purple shirts are parents that have kids currently in the school. And the other side, it's a couple of you guys that have kids and still have children in the district too. They're not being, but what I do want to be clear, because this is the false narrative that has been projected out there about this board that we've had to deal with a lot of questions and inquiries about. There is no paid effort on anyone that sits on the other side of this diocese about our thoughts, questions, and concerns about this framework. And I don't think it's fair to any group, to any parent, to any former parent, to any alumni, to any community advocate, to any elder, alumni, anyone in this community to have that divisiveness just because there are differences. So I ask you guys, and I charge you all, as we continue to go through this process, still be engaged in this process, but respect everyone's perspective, because everyone has their own story, everyone has their own narrative, and everyone has their own way of defining what is excellent schools about, which is also why I do understand the revised board action to continue exploring those action framework and support, and I just encourage the community and parents and stakeholders to continue with us in this process. And so, Board Chair, my question is just making sure that I understand what you're asking from us from this board action tonight and the phases that you're asking, and to make sure that I have conveyed what you're asking from us from page 2 correctly. Thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Collins, and if you look at the board action online, if you want to specifically look at what is being recommended, it would be page 3, which is our vision for excellence, and page 6, which is the portrait of a graduate that the administration has been in the process of working on. Both of those things have been discussed for many weeks and months, and even in talking to community members, hard to argue against adults being invested in student success in a rigorous and supportive learning environment, helping to allow students to grow and achieve in their educational journey. So that is exactly what we're recommending, and then also recommending that we continue the discussion and the design of this work, and allow community and board members to have input, concrete opportunities for input along the way. Nancy, I think you had a question.
I have a question. I have a comment. I want to thank you for your diligent work on scaling this back over the weekend, and it pains me that we're having this discussion today here when you gave us many opportunities along the way to have this discussion. I know a lot of hours of your personal time went in. I think you listened to the community. You scaled it back. We're not committing anything financial as chair of the Budget Commission. That's going to be a discussion. So we are starting to design and develop and execute a plan. And there are words in here like development and continued exploration. And Ishay said it eloquently, so I'm not going to go into it any farther. But, you know, thank you for your time over the weekend. And I just hope next time that this happens, we will have this conversation a month before when you ask us.
Leslie?
I think there is a lot. There's a lot going on here. A lot of questions people have, and due to the fact that we changed this very late in the game, the document itself did not get posted until late on Friday. I would make a motion to table this.
Given everything that we've heard from the community,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I second Leslie's motion, just so that we can take some heat off of this.
Mr. Chairman, that's a non-debatable motion, so the board would need to vote now on that motion.
All right. It's been properly, motion to table has been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Motion to table takes priority over the main motion.
All in favor, say aye. Oh. If the audience can refrain from speaking out, greatly appreciate it.
Discussion can continue.
Thank you, Mr. General Counsel. Dr. Gestarfin, if you can be helpful for you to talk about, one, the board action itself, and two, the need to move forward in this work. And if we are going to have these discussions in earnest, why it's prudent on us to move forward versus going back.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, okay. In response to your question, I think I want to just back up a little bit and say, in my 5th year as superintendent, there isn't a single year in APS where we haven't been doing seriously heavy lifting. And I know that people, community included, it is exhausting, and everybody can agree on one interest-based issue. We really want what's best for kids in Atlanta, and we're trying to figure our way from a very dark of hope and light. I would say that in my 5 years, this is the first time that the board has been very directly involved in shaping the work that you're doing. And I mean deeply involved. So much so, as a reminder, you asked for this work. You asked us to bring forward people who could help you strategize for the future strategic direction of Atlanta Public Schools, knowing that you also agreed in the past that turnaround wasn't forever, that had a shelf life, and it is coming to an end. That you also said that the previously approved strategic plan would need to evolve over time. And because of that, you needed to plan for the future. What we have tried to do is be responsive to your request and to give you the space to lead as a governing team. I'd say, given what I've seen, I'm really proud of y'all. I think you've done a ton of strategy work messy, difficult, required hundreds of hours of work, months of engagement, many conversations, and you've actually produced the one thing I'd hope you could all agree on, but maybe you won't, is that you actually produced a vision to define an excellent school and to actually lay the groundwork for our next strategic direction, leading with the portrait of a graduate. In other words, putting the child at the front of why we're doing the work. This is new. It was hard, but we actually got there. It felt not just like a child-centered agenda, but a child-centered strategy. Now, I can't say, and I'll be honest, phase two is really, really hard. This board asked for a fiscal impact statement. So don't say today that this board did not want to know how much it might cost for us to do the work inside of phase two. Our team worked really hard to find experts from everywhere, from the Department of Education in Georgia to people all across the country, to give you the tightest model we could cost out. But you're not approving that today. But I will tell you, you cannot do phase two without some expertise. We can do some things, which is why I'm encouraged by the language that says start the development of measures. Because there are some measures we could actually put in today that don't require all the expertise of trying to do 70 some odd measures that have been talked about throughout this process. But phase two gives me pause as well, because I know the work involved in it. So if you want to take a step back and give the administration more time to vet that and to understand that better and bring you multiple models over time, scenarios, that is going to take time. And it's March. As far as we understand our work, the school year is actively over. We are preparing for spring break and graduation. So we need y'all to make decisions, bake that stuff into conversations with the budget, so we're not running up against the wall here at the end of the school year. I think the third phase, this is what people say, we're just codifying what we've been doing. You know we've closed schools. You know we've consolidated programs. You know we've touched on staff and changed things. So we've been doing that. We're just being more transparent about it by doing this framework and making it clear to people that we're not surprising them, and we're trying to be true and honest about what may actually happen as some kind of intervention at the hands of the board and at the recommendation of the superintendent. But it's phase two that I really believe it is okay. It is okay for you to look at other options. I encourage you to do whatever you feel you are most comfortable with. But what I'm not comfortable with is no vision. What I'm not comfortable with is no focus on children. And that needs to be done so that we know what we're going into for next school year. I do not believe tabling this for 1 month is going to get you all the answers that I feel like I'm being surprised by a little bit today. So to be clear, part of the reason why the meeting agenda was delayed is because people started asking questions at the midnight hour, at the moment we were supposed to be posting, and I do have to give kudos to the chair who was trying to listen to everyone and be as fair as possible, starting with children. That is the first thing he asked me. What does it take to make sure that we keep moving things for kids? So I love the idea. What does it say? The thing here about adoption of the vision, the portrait, getting ready for the strategic plan. That is something the administration can do. If you want to understand all these measures, it is going to take more time. Give us the nod to start figuring it out, but be rest assured, I am not bringing a recommendation for it until after I have more time with the community in strategic planning. I'm not as concerned about phase 3 because y'all, just be honest, we've been doing a lot of that stuff. We're just telling people that we're doing it. And that I think the one thing that I've learned, maybe, it's 5 years as superintendent here, I do want to listen to the community. I do know that we have not quite gotten that perfectly right. I know that I am concerned about overstraining the system because we only have limited capacity, and knowing how strained we are in APS, having more time to do the tough work is generally better for us, if not absolutely better for us. So vision, that is your governing job. Give me a vision. Continue to support the Agenda for Children by doing a portrait of the graduate, and then give us time through strategic planning to figure out some of those measurement pieces, and be prepared to see something very different to what you've been talking about leading up to this moment. And then I think phase 3 will only come once we finish 1 and 2. But I applaud the work you've done. I know y'all heard a lot of stuff from people, and I've been with different boards at different times, but I applaud you for trying to tackle this. And I applaud you for nailing a vision that is actually quite beautiful, and for making sure that the graduate, the child, is part of that. And I would hope that at minimum, you have enough confidence in the work that you've done in phase 1 to codify that tonight. Mr. Chair, I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Starfin. When we set out on this journey 8 months ago, the board goal was to increase the number of quality seats in the school system and to come up with a plan, a way forward for that. Some of the feedback we constantly heard from board members, from the community, was that we needed a plan to bring all of the things we were doing together so that it was transparent and made sense to the community. We also wanted to increase transparency through measures. We wanted to be able to evaluate the stuff that we were doing and measure effectiveness, and do it in a way that was cohesive and provided everyone, all the stakeholders involved, teachers, parents, students, staff, with a clear way forward for the school system. There was plenty of opportunities for members of this board to voice your feedback, so much so that it was mentioned several times in the AJC about the opportunities that we had to voice concerns and to evolve and to shape this. And even then, as a collective, we heard you and said, we need to phase this in a way so there is no that. I keep hearing a rating system, ranking, impose that or impose this on them. It has not been designed yet. What you have on the agenda right now is a vision for excellence and a portrait of a graduate. And even before this amendment, there was no framework because we didn't have all the measures, we didn't have the weights, we didn't have the formula, we didn't have how we were going to use it, we didn't know whether it was going to be whatever it was. We didn't have those details. We were going to leave that to be a community engagement and administration job for the next year. For the support and action plan, the supports, Leslie, as you pointed out, are extremely important. And we repeatedly, as a board, made the commitment and put it in this document that it was going to be part of the strategic planning work. Which is why with this amendment, we're making all of this, phase 2, phase 3, part of the strategic planning conversation. So if you want to affect the this, if you want to affect the that, you start giving more feedback moving forward, because we're not adopting anything except for the portrait of a graduate, except for the vision of excellence. which I've heard no pushback on. So I get that there are concerns. I have my own concerns. But that's why you lay out a plan and you get feedback along the way to shape this plan and make it something that is Atlanta focused. And even at the end of the day, don't want to be transparent about what actions or supports, or you want to do it in a different timing, that's fine. But at least we start with something we all agree on, which is the vision of excellence and the portrait of a graduate. To the community, all we have done and continue to do is try to give you opportunities to engage, and we want you to continue to engage. All of you have provided, including you, Mr. Shakur, have provided many, many pieces of feedback that are helpful and will continue to be helpful. But I think if we don't start the work, then we're not going to get anywhere. If you have questions about how the implementation is going to be, then start the design. If we don't start the design, then scrap it. But if we scrap it, then I question to all of you, what have we been doing for the last 8 months and where have your voices been? Because you could have said, including the board member who resigned, could have said a long time ago that he was against and that you were against what we were doing. And I can tell you that this is not bullying, this is not dictating. This is the work that we had put in, the work that I put in to make sure that we have consensus. I've heard that consensus, which is why I'm bringing this forward. With that, we have a proper first and a second, and I'd like to open the vote. Where does it say that? And we can, so I think the wording we need to clarify just to make sure. Eric, I don't know. Motion to approve 9.03. That action was amended to take away implement the recommended framework.
Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate if the motion read a motion to adopt the framework?
Well, there's no framework to adopt at this point. So I can read it. I can read it. Authorization for the superintendent to design a system of excellent school strategy with ongoing community and stakeholder engagement. This includes specifically adoption of a district-wide vision of excellence for schools and a corresponding portrait of a graduate that will serve as an anchor to the next APS strategic plan, start the development of measures related to the vision of excellence and continued exploration of an excellent schools framework as part of the strategic planning process, and continued exploration of an excellent schools support and action framework as part of the strategic planning process. The superintendent shall partner with the board during the strategic planning process to determine the appropriate way to integrate the vision of excellence and portrait of a graduate into the next APS strategic plan. Further, as part of its annual budget approval process, the board will consider and approve expenditures related to this work. It's in board docs.
Because I don't think I'm clear on this either. So when would, if we're not using the term implement now, we would have to come back, I assume, and vote again with the word implement. And I don't know if, I'm realizing that this is all happening in real life time, so we may not have an answer to this now, but just to throw that out there, one, and two, you know, if there would be some sort of timeline as to when we might vote again on that implement word.
Yeah.
Verb.
And apologies for that, Candace. The amendment authorizes and approves the first phase, Vision of Excellence and Portrait of a Graduate. It defers the vote on a excellent schools framework and the support and action plan. So all we're doing right now is authorizing the superintendent to start to design that work with engagement and community feedback, or community and stakeholder feedback as part of that process.
Sorry, my mic was off. A budget cost, maybe this is for Dr. C, related to this vote tonight?
I'm sorry.
No, it should be.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of the board member Candace Wood Jackson. So what we did is prepared for you what it would take for us to do what was originally designed by this board and put as an agenda item for us to consider tonight. That has now been altered, but even unaltered, it was a fiscal impact statement. It's written in your agenda as a fiscal impact statement. You have not finished your budget. You would have to take the fiscal impact statement and then apply it to your budget process and make a determination on whether or not you were going to fund that. What I do not know is where the fiscal impact would be, because I have no idea what y'all are about to vote on. So if it is about the vision of excellence and the portrait of the graduate to anchor strategic planning, we would have related costs later whenever we talk about strategic planning. But as far as designing elements for phase 2 as a start initial phase, we've already, we believe there are many things that we can talk about that don't have as high of a fiscal impact if we're looking at other measurements that don't require, complicated, methodologies and things of that sort to be able to do them. So you can start with a far smaller or lesser fiscal impact statement, but whatever we end up doing, you do need to put in your mind that you need to be able to hire the appropriate people to do that work. You do not have the staff today to be able to do that. And we want to make sure we get it right. So depending on what y'all decide, then we can go back and try to figure out a fiscal statement. But if you're not approving as it was originally written, then that fiscal statement would not apply at the same level as it did with the original agenda item.
So, Mr. General Counsel, I think that we are in the process of voting, and the item was not written as amended, although on board docs it's corrected. So I'm not sure if we have to revote or. I know a couple people have not voted.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think if it's possible to restate the motion in as succinct a fashion as possible. I know you read a couple of paragraphs.
Okay, so the motion was to authorize the superintendent to design a system of excellent school strategy with ongoing community and stakeholder support, which specifically includes the adoption of a district-wide vision of excellence for schools and a corresponding portrait of graduate that will serve as the anchor of the next strategic plan.
And I would recommend that anybody who has already voted, but who now wishes to change their vote, be allowed to do so. Not that there is anybody, but I'm just trying to make sure we have a clean slate.
So if we can reopen that vote. It was not completed. If we can, I'm asking officers to please, if folks are interrupting the meeting, we need to move on with business. We can open the vote. It's on the record, and they can make the change to the language.
You are
voting
on the verbal motion given to you by the chair.
You could change your vote. It's already in. It's open. No, if she wants to. There's an oral motion. It's yes, correct. You can vote nay or yay, or abstain if there's a reason. And the language, then we can do a showing of hands, if that's. But we have to take the vote. It is on 9.03.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If it would be easier to understand, perhaps the board could do a voice vote or show of hands based upon the verbal motion that you made.
I think a raise of hands and then a voice vote for Cynthia makes sense. Ms. Long, if you can show the action on the screen from Board Docs, which has the actual language, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, I think it's up now. Ms. Long, has the action been corrected on the system? It is. It is. All right, so it's okay. All right, so we're going to vote on this matter now. The action is showing on the screen to make it clear. And I think that we can do it electronically. Let's try this again. Well, hold on. The motion had already been made. It was made by Nancy Meister, seconded by Ishe Collins. That motion has not changed. The language has not changed. We have just not finished the voting. So we need to finish that voting. If you can open the vote. Moving on. Is there a motion moving on to the monthly budget adjustments? Is there a motion? If we can please have order in the auditorium so we could complete this meeting. Officers, if we can please get babies home and crowd under control. And for now, agenda item 9.04, monthly budget adjustments.
Second.
Been properly moved by Nancy Meister, seconded by Candace Wood Jackson. Is there discussion? I have one. I want to reiterate something that I've said privately and I've said publicly, but I want to restate it. And that's that I think it's important for the Grove Park Foundation, the YMCA, APS, KIP, all of those parties that are helping with this project want to make sure that we do right by our community and that we have a community compact that is inclusive of thoughts from community members, that ensures that we are doing things like affordable housing, workforce development, that we are ensuring that there are opportunities for citizens, residents of the Grove Park community, and those who have been historically disenfranchised. I want to make sure that we get something in place to not only show the community that we are committed as organizations to this project and to their neighborhoods, but to the students whose families deserve reassurances that this is not just something that we're doing that won't benefit that immediate community. So I want to reiterate that as part of this action. Please open the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, moving on to executive session. Mr. General Counsel.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm requesting action on two items. The first, a request a motion on Student Discipline Appeal 2019-4, a motion to uphold the decision of the hearing officer.
Been properly moved by Leslie Grant, seconded by Ishe Collins. Any discussion? All in favor? Or, sorry, open the vote. Did we get anything?
That's the previous vote. Vote's up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next.
Request a motion that the Board of Education accept the hearing officer's findings of fact and recommendation dash 2019 to terminate the employment of Michael Kimball.
Been properly moved by Leslie Grant, seconded by Ishay Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. General Counsel. We will now move to 11.01, which is a resolution on the National School Social Work Week. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Been properly moved. Who did that? Properly moved by Ishay Collins. Seconded by Erica Mitchell. Wait. It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Long, there was earlier, I can barely focus right now. Earlier, there was a motion to table 9.03. I think you couldn't pull it up. If you can try to pull that up so that the folks here can see that. And while we do that, we can move on to the report out from community meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight we had 27 speakers. We heard from parents expressing support for the arts, but also stressing the need for equity in our schools and that every child deserves a great education and loving environment. We've heard opposition in regards to the excellent school framework proposal in the structure and classification of schools, and also strong opposition against the portfolio of school ideology in that framework. There was support expressed for the community schools model, and there was there was emphasis to stress the need to pass the equity policy, and we needed to focus more on the equity policy before moving forward with the excellent framework. We also heard from parents in support of the actual excellent school framework, with the understanding why should high-performing students attend low-performing schools, and that many of them we've also heard parents and students express the need to ban the beef in our schools. Also, the Malcolm Amari Hill Scholarship Fund provided information on free instructional safe driving classes for our students, and provided at local libraries throughout the city. We heard from AFSCME express concerns with the transportation budget or the upcoming budget process period, and renewal of the Aramark food contract. The Latin Association for Parents of Public Schools shared their support for the excellent schools framework, but wants to make sure that they are included in the community engagement and parental feedback process, along with the parent group of Atlanta Thrive, and also ensure within this budget cycle, making sure that resources are allocated to language and translation services. Community members expressed excitement to work with the Grove Park Foundation, but also want to ensure the finalization of the community compact and obligations that was made to the community prior this conversation. We also heard from parents express the need for to support our homeless students and more resources to be devoted to that area as well. Mr. Chair, that is a summative report of tonight's community meeting.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Ishay Collins. We will now have a brief report out of board committees, starting with audit.
Yep, paying attention, Thomas. We did have a meeting this past month on February 28th, and I would encourage anybody who is concerned or interested in seeing what is happening in the audit sphere to please go to the Atlanta Public Schools website, go to the board page, and if you scroll down a little bit under our popular links, you can find Watch Board Meetings Live. You have to scroll through that a little bit, but there's about 6 audit committee meetings up there, and you can watch those again and find out what's happening. Public is always invited, and those are live streamed as they're happening. This past month, we were able to review the finally put together CAFR, the Certified Accounting, which should be posted up on the finance page soon. We, as well as the SPLOST audit, both of those were done by Malden and Jenkins. There were no significant fines with that. Also, we got an update on the audit, the 2019 audit plan from Connie Brown. She will also be presenting to the board at the June meeting, so we look forward to that. And we had discussions about a couple of other items, including the fact that we have one of our community audit advisors, Adrian White, who was mentioned earlier in the meeting, will be rolling off. So we are looking for a replacement for that. She has provided somebody who is very qualified, but we are always willing to hear from the public about that as well. And we are working to develop a more comprehensive website for all of that audit and Office of Internal Compliance information to be accessible without digging 25 layers down on the website. So look for that by the end of the year. That's my report out. Thank you.
Budget?
Yes, we had a meeting on the 28th with our CFO. We had also had the BFAC group here. We had a joint meeting. We had a presentation from Sky around the compensation strategy. We had a preliminary expenditure update, strategies, and ways to potentially, if there's a gap, how we could potentially close that. Provided with information on the legislative session, and we were also given a budget primer to review. So we will meet again in March.
Thank you. Policy, Cynthia?
Yes, we will be working over the next 30 days to finalize the equity policy, and thereafter to work with the administration to develop regulations. And we have also begun work on the language policy, which we were charged with developing at the last board meeting. I met with LAPS a couple of weeks ago and appreciate the help that they are going to give us in crafting that policy to make sure that it meets the needs of all our students and all our families.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for that. I think the only other thing, well, I can't think. So, can I get it? Yes. Is there a report out of conferences? Yes.
No report out from a conference, but just wanted to let the public know and thank them in advance for allowing board members to travel to conferences. It's an important piece of our professional development. Michelle Olympiadis and myself and Erica Long will be going to D.C. This month to the Council of Great City Schools Legislative Policy Conference. It's an annual conference, and we will provides a lot of wonderful information about what's going on at the federal. Thanks to Erica for making appointments with us to meet with our United States representatives and senators on the Hill. So thank you in advance.
Thank you for that. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Properly moved by Nancy Meister, seconded by Ishay Collins. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Cynthia Briscoe Brown,
Have fun.
kudos to you for staying awake this late over there in Europe.
you very
It is
much.
like 3:46 a.m. or something like that.
46
So,
a.m., yes, sir.
thank you. Have a good night.